Portland's like the great white shark in Jaws right now. They're smelling blood.
Big juicy jumbo jack, big juicy jumbo jack, big juicy jumbo jack.
Left face-off circle in the glove zone. Robinson Boyle wrestle. Robinson win the draw. Here is Hot. His shot on. Save with a score! Portland wins the Memorial Cup! Portland wins the Memorial Cup!
Here at Pucklandia, we've been working with Cartside, which is a food cart pod on Williams Avenue, just north of the Glass Palace, 1825 North Williams. It's a short walk from the rink, and it's a food cart pod. There's 6 or 7 different carts to choose from, but what's really nice about it is there's a bar there, a tap house, and there's indoor seating, outdoor seating, a good variety of beer, a lot of IPAs and stouts and whatnot. They cycle them out frequently. So there's a lot of different variety there from week to week. And we're working on a special promotion that listeners to Pucklandia will get. If you mention that you listen to the show, they're going to set you up with happy hour prices, which is a really nice deal, honestly. And it's a nice pregame to get prepared for the hockey game that night. And a place that I've went a few times here over the course of when things open back up. So our friends at our Cartside are looking forward to Pucklandia listeners stopping by and taking advantage of a deal. And so it's a thing you should look into. Maybe I'll see you over there. Welcome into Pucklandia. Pleased to be joined by Casey Bryant, the play-by-play voice of the Everett Silvertips. So you've been kind enough to give us your time before a couple of times, and also on our sister show WHL Unfiltered. Let's just touch on it for a minute. I mean, you kind of been with Silvertips a couple of years now. It seems like we're talking off air about the concept of time and how it just goes by. But you've been sitting in that chair for a little while now and seen a lot of success for the Silvertips team, right?
Yeah, this is the end of season 3 for me in Everett, so it's been a great ride. And the team has been pretty darn competitive all 3 years in different ways and different storylines that have carried through each season. So it's been an awesome stint so far, and I'm looking forward to an exciting series here. This is a clash between 2 of the league's best, so I'm excited. Yeah,
I was thinking that a few minutes ago before we got started, and thinking about how really the Silvertips have contended for at least the division title every year, if not won it. I mean, every year you've covered the team, right?
Yeah, my first year was 21-22 when they were the best team in the Western Conference in the regular season. Last year there were it was a step backward, but injuries really hampered their ability to be a fully competitive team for the duration of the year. You got to figure 2 of the biggest players that are on this year's team, Dominic Raymond and Terrence Smith, both played a combined 25 games last year. So, that obviously just killed the team's chances from the get-go. But they were still a really fun team to watch because you had Jackson Berezowski pursuing the goals record, both for a single season and for a career. And that made for a really awesome storyline. So now you get to this season where the pieces have come together. They've gotten healthier. They've set franchise records. They've gone up against and beaten some of the best teams in the league. It's been a really awesome run. So they've, I think, answered a lot of questions about what people thought was possible for this team.
We touched on the past a little bit and maybe just jump to the future. I mean, we've spoken with you on these shows about the stability of a league like ours versus the Iron League, but in Everett, I mean the change is coming. I mean the high draft pick, the exceptional status, and a new coach to come along with it. I mean that's there's a lot going on here, a lot of moving parts whenever this offseason begins for the Tips.
It certainly creates a lot of work for those of us that work in PR and social media. Every day you're working on a new headline. So, obviously with Dennis Williams moving on to a new opportunity, it's a very exciting time for him. To go back to, I think, where he would say his hockey career didn't necessarily start, but it's been such a major part of his life. I think it's a very formative location for him, a very attractive location for him. So, he's looking to make one more kick at the can, and then winning the draft lottery came right after that. So, you're kind of hit with the bitter pill of losing a coach, but then it kind of washes down easier when you know that you have an opportunity to draft a transformational player. I think that the Silvertips have put themselves in a great position where you look at, in addition to this year's first overall pick, their prospect pool that they have, their draft pick pool that they have, they're set up for long-term success, which is a really exciting thing. So this season, while it is a fantastic run and a really historic run, when you put it into the context of everything within the organization, they set a goals record as a team this year. Their goalie had, Palmer, 30 wins, only the fifth Tip to ever do it, only the second one in the league this year. There were a lot of really great cumulative numbers, and then you kind of look at the future and you can't help but lick your chops a little bit. It's a really exciting time, and they seem to have poised themselves for success in the future as well.
Yeah, for the Silvertips fans, I mean, they were in a position where it had to really hurt to see guys like Zellweger and Hofer move on. But, and then, draft picks are so far out, and we draft a year ahead in this league and all that. And then to have, that immediately turn into, the first overall pick. And then in this year in particular, the second time ever in the history of our league that you have an exceptional status player. So you're going to see, you're going to see that player, immediately. And, that's got to, as much as it had to be frustrating, at deadline, 13 months, 14, whatever it was, 14 months ago to immediately have that, to see the results from it. I mean, it has to be, pretty cool for the fans and the organization.
I think most people kind of recognized, they saw the writing on the wall when the deal was made. I think that, even with those two, it would have been very hard for the Silvertips to make a deep run last year. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful. I just, I'm keeping it realistic because nobody last year was stopping the Seattle Thunderbirds. Nobody. So, when they're in your own division, you'll have to march through them. And then once you get through them, you would have had the misfortune of matching up with the Winnipeg Ice. That's a really hard road for the Tips. So even with those guys, they would have trouble. So what do? They maximize the return. And I think when people saw the return, they kind of went, oh, okay, that makes sense. They were kind of able to stomach it a bit better. And to have it pay, like you said, to have it pay immediate dividends to where now you're in a position to draft first overall. And I believe they also own next year's Kamloops first rounder, which, may not be a lottery pick, but will still be really high. And on top of that, you've had second rounders out the wazoo. You've had, third round picks. You've had really great fortune in signing some high quality prospects that people have already kind of gotten to see, like Kane Wilkie and Breck Liskey, who were last year's 2 first rounders. They are stud prospects that people are really high on. Clark Schaefer's a really good prospect. This is a deep pool now. So it does kind of make the sting, I guess, of that day go down a little easier. You can't say that it hasn't worked out in huge ways for the Everett Silvertips.
Yeah, and as far as, last year, not, the way that poker game settled out, I mean, as, as a fan base that watched 4 games of last year's Kamloops in the playoffs, I mean, there was, yeah, that wasn't the time. Last year wasn't time to go for it, but this year was, as far as both of these clubs, and that kind of dovetails into this upcoming series, and that was one thing about the Silvertips in the first round that they had some diversity early, and if it wasn't for a couple minute stretch in that game one, put together a very dominant performance in the rest of the series. But I suspect that it was probably advantageous to the Silvertips to have a little bit of adversity early on and get punched in the mouth and then have a response. Is that kind of how you saw the rest of that series shaking out?
It certainly helps get the jitters out of the way early. I think that the Silvertips played a really sloppy first period, and I think that there was widespread recognition. But this team responds really well to, like you said, getting punched in the mouth a little bit. I think back to when the Silvertips were playing the Portland Winterhawks back on January 5th. And this was a game where the Silvertips were leading 4-3 with a minute left. They had a power play for the last minute, and Marcus Nguyen scores a shorthanded goal with 30 seconds left to send the game to overtime. And the Silvertips lose that game in a shootout. Now, that was huge for a number of reasons. Number one, the Silvertips wanted to beat Portland. They wanted that second point. That's always a huge game. They wanted to beat Portland in Portland, which is something that they haven't done since November of 2021. And it was the start of a 3-3 that weekend against Portland, Seattle, and Prince George. You have quality opponents coming your way. So they wanted to be able to start that on a high note. And it came just a couple days after the Silvertips had lost on New Year's Day to the Edmonton Oil Kings, a game that I think the Silvertips probably felt they should have had too. So you get punched in the mouth, as you said. January 5th, you lose that game to Portland. How did the Silvertips respond from that? Well, they beat up on Seattle. They beat Prince George. They beat Kamloops. They beat Kamloops again, Wenatchee, and then they put up 11 on Spokane. They win 3-2 against Tri-City, 4-3 against Kelowna. They rattle off 8 straight wins, and this point streak that they have accumulates to where they needed that to kind of get them right. So in the same fashion, in game one, you put up a sloppy first period in which your penalty kill is dreadful, in which you're probably could have been dinged for more penalties, as could the Giants. It was not a hockey game, It was too emotional. It was not cohesive at all. And I think that there's recognition of that on both sides. To where once that first period was kind of out of the way, the Giants scored 4 goals in the first period. They scored 4 goals with a goalie in the net. They didn't score 4 goals the rest of the way. They got 2 empty netters at the end of game 1, and then 3 goals the rest of the series. So, that's about as quick a turnaround and as definitive a turnaround as you could hope for.
Yeah, that's really interesting that, for a lot of our, listeners, Portland fans primarily, they probably weren't real familiar with, what I'm sure they remember that Everett game, but then, as far as the path that the Silvertips took after that and that rebound and, going on a hot run. And, you mentioned, Nguyen scoring shorthanded. That's not, the Silvertips aren't his only victim. This is a kid that, during the internet era, as long as the stat has been kept, he's the franchise leader in shorthanded goals, which is, pretty remarkable for a proud franchise like the Winterhawks are that have had, as many guys come through here as they have. But, there have been, for my money, the series between these clubs over the course of the entire season has been really hard to read. There's been a couple of lopsided games in there. The Silvertips were one of only 2 teams to shut out Portland this year. It's kind of the games have kind of been all over the place. You've had a better seat than most for the series this year. Is that kind of where you're at?
I think that the Silvertips have a blueprint at this point now to where they have 2 wins against the Winterhawks this season. They probably felt that a couple of them were a couple bounces away. Like that shootout game, you probably feel that you're a bounce away from winning that game. But it's a game of such dramatic momentum swings where the Silvertips really, it took until the second half of the year to really fully get their feet underneath them when playing Portland. They had too much trouble scoring against them in the early goings of the year. They lose 4-1 and 5-1 in the month of October. They they lose 6-4 in November in Portland because, again, it's in Portland. It's taken perfect games to beat the Portland Winterhawks this year. And what I mean by that is, a shutout is as perfect a game as you can play, where the Tips were physical all game. They were keeping pace with the Blue Liners. They removed, for the most part, Stefan and Clausen from having too many grade A chances. I don't know how many grade A's they had that game, but it wasn't a lot. The other game that they beat Portland was they were down 3-0 at the end of one, and then they get a natural hat trick in the same period out of Teague Patton, and they come back and they score 6 unanswered and they win it 6-3. Those are the games that it has taken to beat Portland. So it's taken kind of a little bit of magic. And they will need to hone in on that. And it's a problem, if only just because I know that, the Silvertips were banged up a little bit coming out of Game 5. There's some questions about some guys' health. It's going to be a really big task ahead of, I would say, Ben Hemmerling and Julius Miettinen in particular, to kind of take that next step and be leaders defensively and offensively. Because it's going to be a really fast-paced series, and it's going to be all hands on deck.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I do kind of want to delve down to some of these players. But I was kind of thinking about Palmer in net, and how Portland fans just saw his counterpart for the Victoria Royals, and you don't see that very often in our league, or maybe any league, as far as the 1-for-1, same year, same position player, as a hockey trade, if you will, as a good guys, something's not working for them, they just need a change of scenery, and it certainly worked for the other guy. But what have you seen from Tyler Palmer and his his time in Everett and turning his season in the direction he wanted it to go?
I think that he proved last year that he could win the big games for Everett, and I think that kind of was his audition for, are we going to keep you next year as an overager netminder? I don't know when they traded for him that they knew at the time that they were going to keep him for his overager season. That's just me theorizing. I don't know if that was a definitive thing. But the way that he played down the stretch was fantastic for Everett. And pretty quickly in his time in Everett, he earned a comparison from, I remember talking to Dennis Williams, the GM and head coach of the Tips at the time, and he compared his work ethic and his competitive approach to that of Dustin Wolf's, which, I'm sure that Portland fans out there will recognize that's high praise. I don't think that praise gets much higher when you're comparing WHL netminders. So I think that the staff was really taken with his work ethic, with his mental composure, and with his athleticism. Last season, I think his kind of, here I am moment was his shutout of the Seattle Thunderbirds. That was last February 4th, where he turns aside 35 shots and beats Seattle at home in front of a sold-out crowd. That was kind of his, kick down the door, I'm here. Give me the spotlight, I'm ready. And from there on out, I think he's just been a fan favorite. And this season, he's only the second overager goaltender in Silvertips history, the other being Jeff Harvey in year one. It's not happened. And he's rewarded the Silvertips for their faith by giving them, quality start after quality start. He's what I refer to as a world beater. Jan Spunar is one of those guys where, Jan Spunar, you could put him against anyone in the world and you'll feel confident that he can win you that game. Tyler Palmer is one of those guys. He's a world beater. You could put him in against any team in the league and you could feel pretty confident about your chances of winning that game. That's probably the best way that I can put it.
Yeah, I love it. It's nothing says a hockey playoffs better than a good goalie battle, a duel, if you will, and that's looking like we might get a little of that even with some of these high powered forwards that both these teams have. I mean, I know when I'm listening to you call games, Austin Roost's name comes up quite a bit. I mean, I think we might have touched on him already, but is he kind of the straw that stirs the drink for the Silvertips right now?
It's kind of a balance, and I think that that's partially by design. Roos certainly chews up a ton of minutes at every strength because of his prowess down the middle. He's been a great face-off man all season, really smart defensively. I think his 38 goals this year kind of sneaky because they come in bunches for him, and I think that if 40 goals, I don't know if he would have had that on paper. Last year he had 32, and he took a step forward this year, and I don't think that he had kind of the attention on him from a goal scoring standpoint that I'll use a couple of Portland examples. I don't know if he was seen as the kind of goal scorer that, say, a Josh Davies or a James Stefan was, yet he's putting up James Stefan and Josh Davies kind of numbers. So he was really, really smart this year. Great defensive player, great leader in the room. And that's the value that Austin Roos brings is more so than his ability on the ice. It is his presence vocally, just work ethic wise in the room. I would say if you're looking for guy that wholly drives the offense, though, if you're looking in terms of guy who sets the pace, that's Ben Hemmerling. Ben Hemmerling is one of the most aggressive puck attackers that I've seen. An incredible shot generator, one of the best in team history since shots on goal has been a measured metric in these last 5-6 years. And a 90-point getter this season. He, I would say, is probably more so the offensive driver, whereas Roost is more of the two-way, do-it-all kind of Swiss Army knife kind of center.
Interesting, and that's one of the things this Portland team has really kind of prided themselves on is depth through three lines that can score, and they're not afraid to throw their fourth line out there on a regular shift either. I mean, and try to keep things balanced up a little bit more so than loading up the top line. Is that how have the Silvertips really approached that as far as historically they've had a reputation for loading up the top line, top two lines, and really riding those horses. I mean, is that kind of, what can we expect this series as far as, ice time and deployment of those top weapons?
A lot of it, again, depends on health because, Teague Patton missed the first round and, his status is still up in the air. Austin Roost missed most of Game 5. His status kind of up in the air. And I don't have the answers as to if and when they'll be back in this series. So I think that typically they've split Roost and Hemmerling up unless it's kind of hero time. And every now and then, what I would say I've noticed from Dennis Williams is that he is unafraid to push buttons, pull levers, and mix up lines to where there will be probably the usual trios that he'll run out to start the game, but he will feel out the ebbs and flows of the game and be unafraid to kind of okay, that combination isn't working. Let's mix that up. Take Bear off, put Heslop on. Oh, Zaplitny's not really working on that shift, or he just had a PK shift. That's fine. Take Zaplitny off that line, throw in Dominic Rain on. He's mixed it up quite a bit, and he's had good success. And I think that because everybody has played with everybody, it brings a level of versatility to the team that is incredibly valuable. So it's a pretty balanced top 9 with the fourth line getting intermittent shifts. But when that fourth line does get out there, they're a young, scrappy, fast line of youngsters. It's usually some combination of Hayden Smith, who's a 19-year-old who's really big, physical kind of player. Lucas Kaplan, who's an 07 birth year, really fast, really greasy kind of player. Julian Mays, an 07 birth year, incredible skill, former first rounder in the league draft, has a really bright future ahead of him. And Andrew Petrick, who is kind of the net front guy. He's an 05 birth year, sets the screens, mixes it up, and is usually the one to drop the gloves if necessary after the whistles. So you've got yourself a pretty effective balance. And I think that the other important thing to touch on here, Chad, is that, they all work hard. Each line kind of brings their own different brand of pressure in waves. And that's the true value, is that it doesn't necessarily matter who's playing with who. it's the system that makes the Everett Silvertips click. That's what's brought them such success.
Yeah, that's interesting that you going back to mention a couple specific names that are banged up in Teague Patton and Austin Roos that very very important players of this Silvertips team. I mean, let's hope that this time off between series has been beneficial for them to get back to full strength, because I mean these two teams like this are evenly matched enough that you'd hate to see the balance get tipped. I mean, I guess it happens every year, probably every series to a certain extent, but you'd hate to see the scales get tipped just on the fact that a couple guys aren't available or might not be available the whole time, and you'd rather see teams of full strength going at it.
Yeah, I mean that's always true, but I think that the Winterhawks have gone through stretches like that when they were playing their seventh string goaltender for who knows how long, when they kept getting injury after injury. Silvertips have kind of been through the same thing this year. They've kind of weathered the same kind of storm where they've gone half a season without Kate Zaplitny. They've gone half a season without Bo Courtney and Caden Brown. They have missed Caden Hamill for a month. They have missed Austin Ruth for a month before. Like, these are issues that they have all dealt with this season, so it's not necessarily a surprise to them, and they're not panicked. They would be fully ready. It doesn't matter if one guy's out, three guys out, five guys are out. They've kind of been through this to where they feel a little more comfortable, a little more confident in their ability to kind of have the next man up mentality. I think that injuries are never an excuse for that kind of thing. They can explain a whole lot, but nobody in that room will kind of be dragging their feet and going, "Oh man, if we only had so and so, we would have won tonight," or "We're not going to win tonight because we don't have this guy." Because folks on the Portland bench, they don't care. They're going to be coming no matter what. So you kind of have to be ready for that. So it's an important thing that they've gone through. Both teams have kind of had their own respective experience in that regard. And as much as it may, color the narratives for you and I as media people, once the puck drops, it won't matter who's on the bench. It just matters as to the X's and O's chess match that takes place. Yeah,
no, all valid points there. Although you did remind me. I guess it had been long enough now or whatever, but I had kind of slipped my mind the goalie revolving door that Portland went through, and that really wasn't that long ago, and in a season where it came down to the very last weekend, as far as supremacy in the regular Western Conference regular season, and here I was kind of grumpy with subpar performances against the Americans and the Thunderbirds and teams that you expect to beat, controlling your own destiny for home ice throughout, and then I guess maybe they should, it wasn't too shabby to get by with signing a Vakian off of the street, and and I just saw today that he won a Game 7 in the AJ League and is into the league finals, I believe. So, congratulations for to Avakian making something out of this year, and whatever league he happens to be in at the time. But yeah, that was this year, and I think I forgot. So much happens in a year in the league, and it's. Yeah, it's a wild time, and that's why we show up and go to these games. So how about building availability? How about the rodeo we're in your barn and the Paw Patrol here? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Paw Patrol is much bigger deal than junior hockey. I'd like to think we're on par with the rodeo, but I don't know. I mean, it's a really odd schedule, and then the way it trickled out, and we didn't get the whole thing at first. I mean, kind of I'm sure you're privy to a lot of those discussions. I mean, what do you think about the schedule and how it plays out?
I think that the version that you are seeing is the best version of what it could have been. And I don't want to I don't want to spill state secrets, but for anyone who thinks that, yeah, this is weird, man, you should see plans B, C, and D. Because none of them were good. So the way that it shakes out, yeah, it's really weird that it starts off with a 3 and 4. And then that could be that's an opportunity really to make that if either side goes out 3-0 on a series, you could really make the opposition stew for just 3-4 days in that in between Monday and Friday in Everett. So it makes, I think, the first couple games all the more important. If you're on the Silvertips side, this series is going to fly by so quickly because again, you'll have done 3 games in 4 days. You'll be way ahead of everybody else. So you're gonna have to steal one of them in Portland just to try to stave off the panic of heading into Monday, kind of feeling, oh God, the sky's falling. It makes it so much more dire, so it raises the stakes a bit. And then, I think that the attitude that most people have towards the games 5, 6, and 7 is, cross that bridge when we get to it. Because, the Tips have played a 5 and 6 earlier this year. Like, I don't think any part of the schedule will daunt them anymore. It's I don't think that there's very much that will intimidate them. So they'll and the Winterhawks, I know in the last month, how many 3 and 3s did they have? I mean, they were behind the Silvertips in games played all year, to where the last couple of weeks probably were pretty grueling for them too. It's a weird schedule, but you know what? I saw the backup plans, and I will take this in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, it's a really unique one in that both buildings get Friday and Saturday games, and yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that or ever will again, and that's, a pretty cool as far as, selling seats and for the locals, and also sets up a really unique opportunity for fans to go to the other team's building, and I've been in touch with the Silvertips ticket office, and they've historically done a pretty good job of pitching tickets to the road fans, when it's a doable trip like this series is. I mean, it's good for travel for sure. And I actually have a bet going with them that will sell 30 tickets to Portland fans through the link they sent me. It's available on my Twitter or in the Winterhawks fan club Facebook group. But so that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But and assuming that we make it to 5, and I feel that we will, one way or the other. But that 2-3-2 format will be pretty interesting. And as far as your analysis is, where that shifts, in weight. I mean, obviously every game's, super important, and that's, the whole point of the playoffs. But, as far as, trying to make some success in the first couple, because you're going to have to, it's going to be a long week in the middle for whoever's down, in particular how far down they are in the series.
Yeah, it's going to create a real pressure cooker in that week, because you're going to have a long time to stew on the games that have been, and you're going to have a lot of time to kind of try to block out the rest of the noise that exists, which is easier said than done in the social media era. So it's a challenging week, and the 2-3-2, will it make that much of a difference that Game 5 will be in Everett as opposed to Portland? To be honest, I don't think so, because whether it was in Portland the next day or in Everett the next day, it's still a bus trip. It's still a hotel. It's still, it's not as big of a deal, I don't think. And I say that, knowing full well that the Silvertips have not won in Portland in a very, 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 very long time. At the end of the day, the Silvertips won both games on the road in round 1. The Winterhawks won both games on the road in round 1. At the end of the day, you just have to execute no matter what. The only thing that it will change is I think the vociferousness of the crowd after certain goals, and who gets to match up with who in terms of throwing out lines and changes. And that's kind of the only difference that it will make. At the end of the day, somebody's going to have to win on the road. So flopping games 5 and 6, if you really want to win the series, it shouldn't be that big of a deal for you. I think that it just kind of it creates more work, I'm sure, for the sales staff, who will know on Friday night or hopefully before then whether or not there's a game 5. Can you imagine, like, it's a 3-0 series or something, and the other side wins game 4? How late of a night that's going to have to be for our staff. I hope that people out there appreciate those ticket reps, man, because they work hard. They work long hours.
Yeah. I was trying to bug them about, game 5, and like, well, we can't sell game 5, and I was like, oh yeah, you'd think I would. Yeah, I'd understand that at this point, of watching these games for this many years. Like, yeah, you can't sell it till it's available. So yeah, that's a. But again, I suspect it will be by then. But yeah, to your point, if it's if it was 3-0 going into Ford and you're trying to sell tickets to less than 24 hours after that you couldn't sell before, I mean that will be tricky. But I don't anticipate that. But I mean, hell, a couple of overtime goals bouncing off somebody's skate or whatever. I mean, that's the whole reason why we play a series in the first place, because anything can happen, game to game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a really wild series in terms of pace. I think that's the most exciting thing that I'm looking for. Like, and I say that knowing that, like, just as the ticket sales reps will have to have a very quick pace in turning things around from games 4 to game 5, like, it's going to have to be a very fast-paced game on the ice as well. It's kind of a fun little parallel on and off the ice. There's going to be frantic hockey on and off it. So, you know what? It's a fun little parallel motion there from the business ops side and the actual hockey side.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's the right kind of rivalry. I think it doesn't seem to have the nastiness that you get in Kent. It's again a good distance. I like that. I mean, it seems like it's nasty enough, but it's still like you're not scared to take your kids to the game and or whatever. Like, it's I'm kind of looking forward to that element of it, on and off the ice. I think. I mean, what's been your experiences so far in that regard?
Hawks fans are great. I think that they're all super friendly. I had a couple of them like drop off like candy to the booth before, where they're like they'll have said, like, we saw your social media videos, here you go. One of the statisticians brought me like a little Hershey Kiss on Valentine's Day. That was cool. Which was also a nice little pick me up because the Tips lost 10-2 that night, so that was a much needed sweet treat. There's the one billet mom in Portland who knitted the blanket for Dexter Whittle earlier in the year. Like, this is a really, it's a cool fan base. And I'm glad that the rivalry is a little more friendly than it is true animosity. Because while it's cool to have that rivalry, at the end of the day, like, it is minor league sports. It is, you want to appreciate the integrity of the fact that these are kids. And I think that the Portland fans have always been great, and the Portland staff has always been awesome too. The booth as a road broadcaster is very interesting. It's probably one of the most unique setups in the league, in that you're at a folding table in the middle of the crowd, and you're sitting at the same table. I could reach out and touch the PA voice. The DJ is sitting right next to him. The statisticians are sitting not 3 feet behind me. So I am literally rubbing elbows with half of their game day staff. And they're all so phenomenal. And a shout out especially to Nick Merrick, their broadcaster, and to Peter Dewar, who handles a lot of their communications and graphic stuff, because those two are two of my favorite people in the Western Hockey League. They're such a joy to talk to. Great guys. I can't say enough good things about the Portland staff. Honestly, like, I'm bummed that the Silvertips didn't get nominated for Business of the Year for the U.S. Division, because that's a goal of ours every single season. But I'm glad that Portland was able to take it, because I know that Portland works their ass off too. Yeah,
it's it's interesting setup in that building, in that typically the two press boxes, or if you even want to call it that, in there, but would be next to each other, and they're not. You're on opposite sides of the ice with Portland's broadcast team, but and an interesting one too, because it's almost like you're in a dugout. Like it's all like it's like you it always feels like it's like sunken in to me whenever the times I've sat in that spot. It's and I know a lot of the guys like to stand, and you don't have that option in there, but it's definitely a different point of you're just kind of out almost in the crowd in a way.
Yeah, no, that's true. And the one, it drives me insane because I'm a stander during the game. I hate sitting and calling a game. But for Portland, I can't stand because A, I don't have the room. B, if I stood, it would block the views of the statisticians behind me trying to keep tabs on plus, minus, and assists. So like, it would be just inconvenient for everybody. But it drives me up a wall. I can't stand that part of it. I'm a pacer too. I think anybody who has seen an Everett booth cam, like none of that is staged. That's authentic. That's me legitimately like moving around, constantly shifting position. I dislike sitting greatly.
Well, I mean that's that's part of the appeal to this game and our league. It's if we ever go back to the Moda Center, which you'll be able to your broadcast location is very standable there. You get your back against the wall, but my seats I have a rail in front of me. And you can hang on to it like a damn roller coaster because that's junior hockey. It's like a 60-minute roller coaster. So it's no wonder that you get a little bit of nervous energy, and especially being invested in a particular team like we all are, you kind of as much as you are, you just a reporter in that case, like you still kind of live and die with each shift, and that's one of the beauties of this league and being able to be this close to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Every vantage point is different. It's its own sense of intimacy in getting to this pace. Like I remember like my first game in the league when I was first hired for the Silvertips back in October of 2021 was at Accesso Showwear Center in Kent. Now, with time to stew on it and time to actually call their multiple games, it's not one of my favorite vantage points in the league. And I don't say that because it's Kent. I say that because the booth is on the goal line in the corner on one end of the ice, and it's darn near impossible to make anything out on the other end of the ice. So I feel that my call isn't as good as it could be, given the position of the booth. But with it being my first game, like I was really drawn into the atmosphere of the building, the closeness, the production value that the Thunderbirds put on. Like it was a professional show, and the energy in the building was unreal, and the quality on the ice was absolutely fantastic. I got to have my first game in the league be Thomas Milic backstopping with Tyrell Bauer in front of him, and Reed Schaefer in front of him, and Jared Davidson, and all these great WHL players. And on the other side, on the Silvertips side, you have Olin Zellweger, you have Ryan Hofer, Ben Hemmerling scored the overtime winner that night, and Hemmerling's on his way to the NHL. Like, that was a really, really phenomenal introduction to the league, and it's kind of helped set the tone for so many of these great buildings and great vantage points that I've been lucky enough to see. Portland being one of them. I really like the energy of Portland. It's an old barn, but it's a loud fan base. It's a good show that they put on. So I'm very much looking forward to spending some more time in the Rose Quarter, because that'll be this will be a fun weekend. It won't be a long weekend, but it'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah. Once it gets going, it's going to be over pretty quick, as you're pointing out. I mean, just looking at having the Silvertips schedule up. I mean, they just looking at the games this calendar year, and even before that. I mean, you guys have had really good crowds. I mean, nothing below 5,000. A lot of 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. I mean, it's the staff's really the ticket staff's really been doing a good job up there, and having a good product on the ice, I'm sure helps. I mean, what's it been like having that full crowd during down the stretch this year, and bringing energy into the well, it's not the cable box anymore. I guess the Angel of the Winds.
Yeah, I feel spoiled that the Silvertips have been towards the tops in the league in attendance every single year I've been here. They led the league my first year. My second year we were only behind Spokane, and then this year only behind Edmonton. Averaging over 6,000 a game. Really awesome run, and a shout out to Joel Anderson, Katrina Kuntz, Mackenzie McLeod, Anna Stensland for helping sell all those tickets because they've been working their behinds off to get that crowd full and pumping every night. And not only that, you have to, deliver a good product to them on the ice and deliver a good show to them off it. And that, all, again, goes back to Joel and to our game day operations director, Ian McNaughton, who every moment that someone is in the crowd, they're entertained. So they've been able to put on, for my money, an NHL-level entertainment product that is unmatched, in my opinion, in the WHL, my completely biased opinion in the WHL. And I think that one of the things that struck me is players realize it. When they step onto the ice, I remember chatting with Parker Berg when he came over from Regina, and I was asking him and asking his family too, what were the changes when he came over at the deadline. He's a 20-year-old who's played 4 seasons in Regina. He finally comes over to the States. That he'd never seen the U.S. division before, and I'm like, what'd you think your first couple games? And they go, honestly, it was weird because we couldn't hear the whistles on the ice. The crowd is so loud during the game. It was such a shift that Regina is a little quieter. The Canadian markets in general are a little quieter during play. We were having trouble hearing the action and hearing stoppages and starts because of the noise in the cowbells, the music, and the volume in there. And then I think to another quote from Austin Roost. This was after game 2 of this round. Against Vancouver. Tips win it 2-1, and the announced attendance is only about 4,500, 4,600, which is a good crowd for most buildings. For Everett, I think they would say that was a little down, but for most buildings in this league, that's a really good size crowd. And Austin Roost after the game says, I think that's one of the loudest, if not the loudest, that I've ever heard this building before, because of just the volume and the energy and the enthusiasm. That's buy-in to me. That's a buy-in from a fan base that you can't get everywhere else. And it's predominant in the Pacific Northwest in all 3 of their markets that, the fans that show up, it doesn't matter if it's, 3,000 people in the stands or 8,000 people in the stands, they bring the volume. And that's part of what makes a matchup like this, a marquee matchup like this, so exciting, is you just know that, if this fan base is rewarded with a deep run, you got to know that they're going to bring the magic in ways that they haven't maybe since 2004. It's awesome.
Not really related to anything, but we added a building in the league this year. What was what's your takeaway on your first couple of games of Wenatchee?
I think that they did a good job setting things up so quickly. I think that they have a lot to build on. I think the rink is nice. You've got a simple concourse with a lot of room to do things. You've got good pockets of entertainment for fans to, kind of during intermissions, if you want to go send your kid off to go play in the playpen or go play some Xbox or something. That was honestly my favorite touch I think I've seen in any arena, is that they have a corner set up where you can go play Xbox of the Wenatchee Wild against that night's opponent on NHL 23. I think that was the coolest thing that I've seen. That's a nice little touch. You go play a 5-minute game and your kids are entertained. So I think that was cool. I'm sure that they would love to get a new video board in there. That's probably long-term one of their investments that they would like to make. But the bare bones basics of putting on a hockey game, good energy in there, good volume. They have cowbells too there. So I think that they generally have a good active fan base. If I were to make a broadcaster's nitpick, I would like a nicer booth because it's kind of 3 feet by 3 feet at a folding table where you're kind of next to the other camera people and the video people and the other broadcaster. It would be nice if they could clear that space out. And then it would also be really, really nice if they could get working Wi-Fi in there. those would be my two constructive criticisms, and that's strictly, it only affects me as the visiting broadcaster. If I were a fan going in there, I would generally be pretty happy. And I know, talking to some players too, asking them like what they think of the rink itself. It's good ice, it's good boards. There's not really much you can complain about. Like, it's a good atmosphere. To answer your question, it's a good atmosphere.
So so it's slightly better than being behind the camera in Kelowna?
Yeah, it's a better vantage point than that for sure. As tight of the confines they may be, that is nice. The one thing that Kelowna does have, though, is that Kelowna has a restroom right by the booth, so that you don't have to go anywhere very far if you're in an intermission or before the game. And the food in Kelowna at the media room is pretty darn good. So those are the two legs up that Kelowna does have. But trying to fight your way through a screen for the entirety of the game, anytime the puck heads to your left, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Well, I've kept you for a while, and I know you got a big series to prepare for here. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts as we go to put a wrap on this one, as far as what to expect and how we think this might break down?
I think that my one thought that I have for both Portland fans and Everett fans is that this is going to be the most exciting hockey that you'll see all year. I think the rivalry makes it extra special, but in terms of quality on the ice, I don't know if you'll find a more thrilling product, and I don't know if you'll see tighter, more emotional hockey than this. And that's true. I think even if either side makes it to the Western Conference Final against either Prince George or Kelowna, I think it's true of the WHL Final too. I think this is one of the best matchups that you could have asked for all season long. So I really hope that both fan bases recognize that and fill the buildings, because those will be really awesome opportunities to take in some exciting hockey. So I'm really thrilled. I'm jazzed to get going here, because this is going to be, win, lose, or draw. This is going to be some of your best hockey of the year.
I love it. Well, we'll be looking forward to your call, Casey, and I always appreciate you giving your time to shows like ours, and it makes for a better product if we have fans that know a little bit more about what's going on when the series starts. So best of luck with travel and all that, and yeah, we'll see you in the rink.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Casey.
Take care.